Good morning. I'm Michael Bihn from the University of Colorado, Colorado Springs. First, I'd like to recognize my co-authors for this paper, Manuel, Günther, Dan Lemmond, and Terrance Boult. Our paper is on processing shortwave, infrared, SWIR images on a convolutional neural network. We looked at these SWIR images at 1300 nanometer and saw they appear similar to the visual or RGB images. We hypothesized that existing deep neural network facial algorithms may work well on SWIR images as they do on RGB images. We set out and did evaluate the performance of VGG face, a convolutional neural network, utilizing a dataset containing both RGB and SWIR images. However, current neural networks require lots of training data, which is not available in the SWIR domain. We examined the ability of a convolutional neural network, specifically the VGG face network, which was trained on visible spectrum images, to work on these SWIR images. Machine learning algorithms, both traditional and neural network based, have been tested on RGB images for years, and even some near infrared images. Machine learning but these algorithms are prone to fail when illumination conditions are insufficient. For example, at night or when images are obstructed or from long distances. Shortwave infrared illumination provides a much higher intensity and much more ambient structure than visible light, which makes it better suited for face recognition in these difficult conditions. At night, the brightest source is the full moon, which provides more light in the near range than in the shortwave infrared. This moonlight is highly directional, causes shadowing, and is less significant when the moon is 3/4 or less, or obstructed by weather. Air glow provides that SWIR wavelength illumination source in the SWIR band, even reducing shadowing effects from the moon. Note that this irradiance scale is logarithmic. There are orders of magnitude more SWIR illumination naturally available. This newer data set provided the images for our experiments. We are obliged to recognize their contribution. The source is also noted in our paper as a written reference, and it contains both RGB and shortwave infrared SWIR images. The SWIR dataset of Steiner et al. Contains images of 935 nanometer, 1060 nanometer, 1300 nanometer, and 1550 nanometer. They also include a composite image using the 1060, 1300 nanometer, and 1550 nanometer aligned into the RGB channels. For each of the SWIR images, there's a set of RGB images. The SWIR cameras were co-aligned, which allowed for the creation of the composite image. Note, this is a false color representation with the SWIR wavelengths in the RGB channels. We initially detected the faces using MTCNN. 10% of the faces were dropped by MTCNN. MTCNN was trained on RGB data and therefore failed on some of our SWIR images. We chose to manually crop to retain all images. Manually cropping was tedious but effective. We cropped the SWIR images from 636 by 508 down to 224 by 224. Then we cropped the RGB images from 426 down to by 640 down to the 224 by 224. We chose the 224 by 224 as the input to VGG phase, thus eliminating the scaling and possibly losing detail. Our experiments use VGG phase as trained on their database. VGG phase built a feature vector for each of our images, both SWIR and RGB. The average RGB template contains one feature vector for each individual. The average template has been shown to perform well for viz-to-viz face recognition. The RGB average image feature representation was built by averaging the 4096 feature vector from all the RGB images for each individual. We computed the Euclidean distances between images features and the average RGB template. Using these distances, we computed the true accept rates for selected false accept rates. We included the RGB probing on RGB as a baseline. With the small data set we had, we didn't expect to achieve the results of other experiments. As shown in the table, these calculations were performed for all wavelengths probing on the RGB gallery. The SWIR wavelengths probing on the average RGB gallery. Remember that gallery has one feature vector for each individual. And lastly, we looked at the SWIR wavelengths probing on themselves. True accept rates were calculated for false accept rates of 0.1%, 1%, and 10% for each of the comparisons. As you can see, the best verification rates were for the SWIR images probing on the average RGB images. This first table shows the results excluding the full profile images from the calculations. Here you can see the SWIR 1550 nanometer probe on the average RGB, outperforming the RGB probe on RGB at low false accept rates. We also see the 1550 nanometer probe on itself is better than the 1550 nanometer probe on the RGB. At false accept rates up to about 18%, the 1550 nanometer probe on average RGB outperforms the RGB probe on RGB. Here you can see the SWIR 1550 probe. Oh wait, yeah, here we go. The log ROC shows the real results. This emphasizes the 1550 nanometer probe on the average RGB is better than expected. Yes, the 1550 probe on the 1550 is below the RG probe on RGB, with the 1550 probe on individual RGB showing the worst performance. This may emphasize the value of the average RGB gallery. Including the profiles yielded lower true accept rates. This has been documented for VGG face in previous literature. Also, we see the unusual low performance of the 1300 nanometer against the average RGB, especially when compared to the other SWIR wavelengths. I'd like to verify this with a larger data set. If it holds, I have to wonder if the composite verification TARs would be better if the 1300 nanometer was replaced with the 935 nanometer. After accepting that VGG face may not process profile images as well as expected, we removed these images from our experiments. We plotted the distribution of Euclidean distances of positive pairs and negative pairs. For the negatives, we split them into the profile-to-profile comparisons, which are plotted in red, and the comparisons of the non-profiles, which are shown in black. Looking at the score distribution, we can still see a bump on the left-hand side of the non-profile negative distances, the black line over on the left. Providing the, particularly for the 1060 nanometer wavelength, this bump is at the same place where the distances between the profile to profile are located. We assume there are low distances, that these low distances in a small jump may be generated by the half profiles probing on the half profiles. Removing all half and full profile images from our data set most likely would have increased the true accept rates for both the RGB, un-RGB, and the SWIR. Better yet, what insights do these results tell us about the SWIR wavelengths? And what is the neural network seen in the SWIR images? Previously, literature suggested that the first layer of the VGG-based network resembles Gabor and Sobel-like filters. In order to investigate, we looked at the Sobel filters applied to the images. Here we see the Sobel of the red channel of the RGB. Now let's compare that to the Sobel on the 1300. From the red to the 1300 filtered images, we see cheek and forehead features appear, as well as the tip of the nose. Could this be enough of a difference that the 1300 wouldn't match to the average RGB? What about the 1500? What's it look like? And with the 1550 nanometer SWIR, we see the features even more prominent. Further inspection notes the loss of the chin line, which is still present in the 1300 nanometer Sobel. Also, the prominent nose features in the red channel of the nostrils. Well, in the 1550, it's the tip of the nose. One tip, two nostrils, don't know if they're going to map together. The eyebrows in the red Sobel are faint and separate. In the 1300 nanometer, the forehead appears. In the 1550 nanometer, the image has a unibrow. Two eyebrow to a unibrow, don't know if that's going to match. The pupils in the red channel appear as two side-by-side dots. In the 1550, they end up as concentric circles. Don't know if those are going to match. Of course, in the wild, the omnidirectional illumination of the air glow may not produce these bright spots. And the SWIR lamp used in the Steiner et al. Set was directly in front of the person, and that's not what will happen in the real life. So in order to study these differences, we need a larger data set, and that data set should include in the wild images underneath the natural nighttime air glow. Okay, except for the 1300 nanometer, the SWIR wavelengths had an unexpected positive performance against the average RGB. Many other ideas for future studies come to mind. Break out the RGB channels. See how they perform individually. Mix and match the wavelengths to find the best performing composite. Verify the 1300 nanometer oddity against the average RGB. Other intermediate wavelength candidates, or are there other intermediate wavelengths that may be candidates for explorations? You know, what about 1,000, 1,200? And, but we do need more data, a sufficiently sized data set. And where was the guy that was saying he could get data? Thank you.
All right. Does anyone have any questions?
So the indoors data you're using, what illumination? Is it just ambient illumination?
No, that's found in the Steiner paper. They had a ring LED light illuminating from right around the cameras directly on. So if there were any surfaces that were perpendicular, like the forehead, the tip of the nose, the chin, the lips, those cause those bright spots on the 1550.
And just to get your perspective, I mean, there's not enough training data to train a network, a deep network completely, but do you envision fine-tuning existing visible phase networks on your existing sphere data because they have shown light in the near IR domain, right? But of course, there's more data in the near IR, but
right.
Your thoughts on that, what would be needed to, if it would be feasible to fine-tune?
We didn't look at fine-tuning. We only had 53 individuals and 7 SWIR and 7 RGB of each. It's a very small data set. Definitely wouldn't train on it. I mean, it just, yeah. So.
I'll just follow up with another question. You mentioned the ring LEDs. Did you observe any artifacts? Because I know there's a lot of times with the ring LEDs, particularly in, I guess, near infrared, there's the circular artifacts. Is that observed also in the SWIR?
It was not our ring LED, but now that you mention it, maybe that's the effect of the concentric circles in the pupils.
Yeah, I know there's, I guess there's some removal techniques for that. So it'd be interesting to look at. Right. And
well, we also have, I mean, in the wild, the effects of global warming, or you know, the irradiance is coming from all directions. It's not just from in front.
Correct.
So we don't even know that those bright spots would occur.
And I guess a second question is, you know, obviously data is a big limitation. We all struggle with data, particularly when dealing with infrared and matching with visible. But, you know, do you have any hypotheses or ideas for how you could mitigate that in the short term?
No.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right. Well, let's thank our speaker once.